April 27th, 1909, Yıldız Palace, Istanbul. Soldiers surround the palace, thousands of them, armed, angry, revolutionary. Inside, an old man sits in his study. He is 66 years old. He has been Sultan for 33 years. 33 years of absolute power over one of the largest empires on earth. His name? Abdulhamid II. And today, his reign ends. The soldiers burst in, officers, revolutionaries, men who once feared him. Now they are here to remove him. Your Majesty, they say, you have been deposed. By order of the Parliament. You will be taken into custody. Abdulhamid does not resist. He knew this was coming. He has always known. Because for 33 years, he has lived in constant fear of exactly this moment. He is taken away, not executed, not exiled abroad, but imprisoned, first to Thessaloniki, Salonik, far from Istanbul, to a villa called Villa Alatini, under guard, under watch. And then 3 years later, when war comes and Salonik falls to Greece, he is brought back to Istanbul, to Beylerbeyi Palace, a beautiful palace on the Bosphorus. But still, a prison. And there Abdulhamid will remain for 9 more years, until he dies in 1918. 33 years as one of the most powerful men on earth. 9 years of captivity. This is the story of Abdulhamid II, the paranoid sultan, the spy master, the modernizer, the survivor, the man who trusted no one and ended up alone. September 21st, 1842. Topkapı Palace, Istanbul. A boy is born to Sultan Abdülmecid and his consort, Tirimujgan Kadın. His name, Abdulhamid. He is not the eldest son, not even close. He has many older brothers. In the Ottoman system, that usually means safety. The heirs get the attention, the younger princes just exist. But Abdulhamid's childhood was anything but safe. His mother, Tirimujgan, was Circassian, beautiful, intelligent, but fragile. When Abdulhamid was just 7 years old, she died. Some say illness, others whisper suicide, that she threw herself from a window in despair over losing the Sultan's favor. Abdulhamid never forgot that, the loss, the rumors, the instability. He was raised by his stepmother and various palace servants. He grew up watching, observing, learning. His father, Sultan Abdülmecid, was a reformer. He tried to modernize the empire. Western-style reforms, new laws, new institutions. But he was also weak, indecisive, controlled by European powers who were slowly carving up the empire. Abdulhamid watched this too, and learned another lesson. Weakness invites predators. When Abdülmecid died in 1861, Abdulhamid was 18 years old. His uncle, Abdulaziz, became Sultan, and Abdulhamid went into the shadows, waiting, watching, preparing. For the next 15 years, Abdulhamid lived as a prince, not locked in the cafes. That system had been abandoned, but still limited, controlled, supervised. He had siblings, many siblings. His full brother was Mehmed Rashad, who would later become Sultan Mehmed V. His half-brothers included Murad, who would become Murad V. The palace was full of intrigue, rivalries, alliances, betrayals. Abdulhamid watched it all. He studied people. He learned who could be trusted. Almost no one. Anari had ambitions. He was quiet, reserved, not physically imposing like his uncle Abdulaziz, not charismatic like some of his brothers, but he was smart, extremely smart. He read constantly history, politics, European affairs. He learned languages, Turkish, Arabic, Persian, French. He studied carpentry as a hobby, actually became quite skilled at it. It gave him something to do with his hands, something to focus on besides the constant palace intrigue. And he waited. 1876, the year everything changed. May. Sultan Abdulaziz was deposed in a coup. 5 days later, he was found dead, officially suicide, but almost certainly murder. Abdulhamid's half-brother, Murad V, became Sultan, but Murad was unstable. Maybe he was genuinely mentally ill. Maybe the stress broke him. Maybe he was drugged or driven mad deliberately. Either way, after just 93 days, Murad was declared insane and deposed. And on August 31st, 1876, at age 33, Abdulhamid became Sultan. He had not fought for it, had not schemed for it, had just outlasted everyone else. And now he sat on the throne of a collapsing empire. The Ottoman Empire in 1876 was in crisis, deep crisis. The treasury was bankrupt. The empire had defaulted on its debts to European banks. Uprisings were happening everywhere: Bulgaria, Bosnia, Serbia. Christian populations rebelling, supported by Russia and other European powers. The military was outdated, poorly equipped, demoralized. And the government? Weak, corrupt, ineffective. Abdulhamid looked at all of this and understood. If he did not act fast, the empire would collapse, not in decades, in years, maybe months. So he made a decision, a controversial decision. He would give the reformers what they wanted, for now. December 23rd, 1876. Just months after becoming Sultan, Abdulhamid proclaimed the first constitutional era, a constitution, a parliament, elections. The reformers, led by Midhat Pasha, the same man who had helped depose Abdulaziz, were thrilled. Finally, they thought, a constitutional monarchy, limits on the Sultan's power, democracy. But Abdulhamid, he never believed in it. He saw the constitution as a tool, a way to calm internal opposition, a way to show Europe that the Ottomans were civilized and modern. But give up real power? Never. Within 2 years, Abdulhamid had dissolved the parliament, suspended the constitution, exiled Midhat Pasha, who would later be murdered under mysterious circumstances. And from 1878 onward, Abdulhamid ruled as an absolute monarch. For the next 30 years, there would be no parliament, no constitution, no democracy, just Abdulhamid and his spies. Because here is what made Abdulhamid different from other sultans. He did not trust anyone, not his ministers, not his family, not even his own guards. And so he built something unprecedented in Ottoman history, a massive intelligence network. The Hafiye Teşkilatı, the secret police, spies everywhere, in every ministry, every province, every city, every neighborhood. They reported directly to Abdulhamid, bypassing all official channels. Who was loyal? Who was plotting? Who was meeting with foreign agents? Who was reading banned books? Who was attending secret meetings? Abdulhamid wanted to know everything. Foreign ambassadors wrote shocked reports describing how the Ottoman Empire had become a police state. How people were afraid to speak freely, how even private conversations could be reported to the palace. Abdulhamid read everything, every report, every telegram. He worked late into the night, reading intelligence reports, making notes, tracking threats. He survived. He survived because he knew everything before it happened. But it came at a cost. He became paranoid, genuinely paranoid. He saw threats everywhere, conspiracies in every corner. He moved from palace to palace, changed his routines constantly, kept his plans secret, even from his own staff. He survived at least 19 assassination attempts, bombs, ambushes, poisoning attempts. Each one reinforced his paranoia, proved he was right to trust no one. Despite his paranoia, Abdulhamid had a large family. His first marriage was in 1868, before he became Sultan, to Nazikita Kadın. She was Circassian, like his mother. She gave him several children. After becoming Sultan, he took additional consorts, as was traditional. His most significant wives included Nazikita Kadın, his first wife, mother of several of his children; Bidar Kadın, another important consort who bore him children; Mushfika Kadın, known for her influence in the harem; Sazkar Kadın, Bedri Felek Kadın, Dilpesend Kadın, and several others. Abdulhamid fathered at least 17 children. Some sources say more. His sons included Mehmed Selim, his eldest son, who died young; Mehmed Abdulkadir, another son who became heir for a time; Mehmed Burhaneddin, Ahmed Nuri, Mehmed Abid, and many others. His daughters were married to important officials and princes to create political alliances. But here is what is tragic about Abdulhamid's family life. He kept them close, too close. He did not allow his sons to govern provinces or gain experience, fearing they might be used against him. He kept them in the palace, watched, controlled. His paranoia extended even to his own children. But here is what is often forgotten about Abdulhamid. He was actually a modernizer, a significant one. Yes, he was autocratic. Yes, he was paranoid. Yes, he censored and suppressed. But he also built. He expanded the railway network dramatically. The most famous project? The Hejaz Railway. Connecting Damascus to Medina, making the pilgrimage to Mecca easier for millions of Muslims. He brought electricity to Istanbul. Telegraph lines spread across the empire. Modern hospitals were built. Schools were established. He reformed the military, brought in German advisors to train Ottoman officers in modern tactics. He even established a secret intelligence school, training operatives in espionage, codes, surveillance. So, why do people remember him as a tyrant rather than a modernizer? Because he did all of this while running a police state, while censoring newspapers, while exiling dissidents, while banning books and plays that criticized the government. He modernized the empire's infrastructure while suppressing its people. That is the contradiction of Abdulhamid. Progress and oppression, hand in hand. By the 1890s and early 1900s, opposition to Abdulhamid's rule was growing. The empire was losing territory. Wars with Russia, uprisings in the Balkans, European powers taking more control. And internally, a new generation was coming of age. Young officers, intellectuals, reformers. They looked at Abdulhamid's autocracy and thought, this is not working. We need change, real change. They began organizing in secret, meeting, planning, building networks. Abdulhamid's spies reported on them constantly. He knew they were there, but they were careful, disciplined, and they were growing stronger. By the early 1900s, opposition had coalesced around a movement, the Committee of Union and Progress, the Young Turks. They wanted the constitution restored, parliament back, an end to autocracy. Many of them were military officers, educated in modern academies, influenced by European ideas of nationalism and constitutional government. They were patriots. They loved the empire, but they believed Abdulhamid's methods were killing it. Abdulhamid tried to suppress them. Arrests, exiles, executions. But the movement kept growing. In 1908, young Turk officers in the Balkans mutinied. They demanded the restoration of the constitution. Abdulhamid, facing a military rebellion, gave in. On July 24, 1908, he restored the constitution, reconvened parliament. The empire celebrated. People danced in the streets. Freedom! Democracy! The tyrant has surrendered. But Abdulhamid had not surrendered. He was playing for time, trying to survive. For a few months, there was an uneasy balance. Abdulhamid was still Sultan. But Parliament was in session. The Young Turks held real power. Then, in April 1909, a counter-revolution happened. Conservative forces loyal to Abdulhamid attempted a coup to restore his absolute power. It failed. Within days, the Young Turks crushed the counter-revolution, and they decided Abdulhamid was too dangerous to keep on the throne. April 27, 1909. The parliament voted to depose Sultan Abdulhamid II. Soldiers were sent to Yildiz Palace. They informed him of the decision. Abdulhamid did not fight. He did not rage. He just accepted it. After 33 years of absolute power, it was over. His brother, Mehmed Rashad, became Sultan Mehmed V. And Abdulhamid? He was taken to Turan Palace, the same palace where his half-brother Murad V had been imprisoned for decades. Now it was his turn. Turan Palace was not a dungeon. It was luxurious, beautiful rooms overlooking the Bosphorus, but it was still a prison. Abdulhamid was allowed to have some family with him, some servants. He could read, he could do carpentry, his old hobby, but he could not leave, could not participate in politics, could not communicate freely with the outside world. He was a prisoner, and he would remain a prisoner for the rest of his life. For 27 years, Abdulhamid lived in that palace, watching the empire collapse from a distance. World War I broke out in 1914. The Ottoman Empire entered on the side of Germany and Austria-Hungary. Abdulhamid, locked in his palace, could only read about the disasters, the defeats, the losses. By 1918, the empire was finished. The war was lost. Allied forces were occupying Istanbul. And on February 10, 1918, at age 76, Abdulhamid died of natural causes, just old age and illness. After 33 years of ruling an empire and 27 years as a prisoner, Sultan Abdulhamid II was gone. His funeral was quiet, small, no grand ceremony. The empire he had ruled for 3 decades was collapsing. Within a few years, it would cease to exist entirely. He was buried in the mausoleum of Sultan Mahmud II, his grandfather, and the world moved on. So who was Abdulhamid II really? Was he a tyrant? A paranoid dictator who suppressed freedom and ruled through fear? Yes, absolutely. Was he a modernizer? A sultan who built railways and schools and tried to save the empire through infrastructure and reform? Also, yes. Was he a survivor? A man who navigated 33 years of constant threats, assassination attempts, and political intrigue through intelligence and caution? Without question. Abdulhamid is not a simple figure. He cannot be reduced to hero or villain. He was a complex man in an impossible situation, an empire that was dying, European powers that wanted to carve it up, internal rebellions, economic collapse, military defeats. He tried to save the empire through autocracy, Through modernization without democracy? Through intelligence networks and control. Did it work? For 33 years? Yes. He kept the empire together when many thought it would collapse. But at what cost? Suppression, fear, a police state. And in the end, it did not matter. The empire collapsed anyway, just a few years after he was deposed. All that control, all those years of paranoia, and the empire fell anyway. Today, Abdulhamid II remains one of the most controversial figures in Turkish and Ottoman history. In Turkey, he is deeply polarizing. Some see him as a hero, a sultan who defended the empire against European imperialism, who modernized infrastructure, who tried to preserve Ottoman power in an age of decline, who built the Hejaz Railway and brought progress to the empire. Others see him as a tyrant, a dictator who suppressed freedom, who ruled through fear rather than justice, who imprisoned dissidents and censored thought. Both views have evidence to support them, because Abdulhamid was both. He was not a simple villain or a simple hero. He was a man who believed the only way to save the empire was through absolute control, who trusted no one, who built a spy network across 3 continents, and who ended up spending nearly as many years in prison as he did on the throne. 33 years of power, 27 years of captivity. That is the story of Abdulhamid II. If this story of paranoia, power, and impossible choices moved you, if you are sitting there wondering whether Abdulhamid was right to be so paranoid, whether his methods were justified, whether anything could have saved the empire, hit that like button. Because history is not simple, it is not clean. The most important figures are often the most complicated, the ones who did terrible things and great things simultaneously. And Abdulhamid II is one of the most complex rulers in history. We are uncovering all these stories, the paranoid rulers who survived, the modernizers who suppressed, the empires that collapsed despite everything. So if you want more content that makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about power and leadership, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Drop a comment. Was Abdulhamid a hero or a villain? Could the empire have been saved? Was his paranoia justified? We want to know what you think. Thanks for watching. And remember, the line between saving an empire and destroying it is often thinner than we think.